We're going to start off by saying welcome to God is in the Details. It's a podcast to encourage people online. I'm super excited to be here today with Coach Sams and Miss Kim Sams. I call Coach Sams Gator, and we also have Coach Lotro. Lotro is going to be on the podcast today with us asking questions. And what an amazing topic, you know, and it's not just an individual topic. We're talking about a testimony today of God's miracle power. And, I want to start with you, Coach Sam, just people are going to be seeing this all the way across the country, and it's pretty amazing. A lot of people from every generation. Tell them who you are, and we'll go around, tell them a little bit about you and what we're here talking about today.
My name's Danny Sams. Most everybody that knows me really well calls me Coach Sams because I've been coaching high school ball for, 23 years now, something like that. A lot of JV football, a lot of varsity football, but coaching kids, let's say that. How's that sound?
Absolutely.
And I'm 67 years old, and I'm a native Floridian, grew up right here in Florida. Have been living in Claremont for 38 years now, in the same house.
Wow.
38 years, and through that time, I've had several jobs, and one of them was a teacher. I did that for about 11 years, I think, and then just semi-retired and became a substitute teacher, and that's when you and I met, because all of my substitute teaching, I was doing subbing for you a lot, and almost all the substitute teaching was at South Lake High School.
Yeah.
And because it was at South Lake, I said, you know what, let me go back to coaching. So, and that's where we really met. You were defensive coordinator on varsity at South Lake. I was defensive coordinator on JV. Yeah. And so I pretty well sucked your brain dry on what it takes to be a defensive coordinator.
You did a really good job.
And it was a very good time for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I basically COVID hit, and I decided I wasn't going to substitute teach anymore, and I decided to take a year off from football because, the whole community was kind of, with schools and everything, it kind of got a little crazy.
Yeah.
But and I just didn't want to be a part of that, and we'll leave that at that. But then you had retired also.
1 year.
And we were going to breakfast once a week, I think it was. Yeah. And so actually you were applying for the head coaching job at South Lake.
Yeah.
And this is in the springtime. And you asked me if I wanted to come over and help out. And I think that's when I lowered the boom on you and told you I had pulmonary fibrosis.
Yeah.
Is that about right?
It's about right.
I know. I'm
My
having
first question is, what is this? And because I had never heard of it up until that point.
I know. And, I really had never heard of it either. I had to look it up.
Wow.
And now I know more about it than I ever wanted to know. So anyway, pulmonary fibrosis it's called idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. That's what I had. And it is called idiopathic because nobody really knows where it comes from. It could come from so many different places. I could have been infected by 2 or 3 different, it's not really an infection. What would I say? Affected. How's that sound? Mm-hmm. By from 2 or 3 different places in my life. Anyway, I had it, and what it is it's scarring on the lung tissue, and that scarring, I learned, on the inside of your body continues to grow. In other words, the scar tissue replicates scar tissue. Who knew that?
That's crazy.
You get a scar on the outside of your body, it goes away. You know what I'm saying?
But it doesn't
Over years.
replicate and
Yeah,
continue
it
to
doesn't
grow.
look like it does. And I thought scar tissue just kind of was there and that was it, and it kind of went away. And the doctor went, nope, continues to grow. And what it does is it grows and starts surrounding the alveoles, which is that part of the tissue that transfers the oxygen from your lung into the tissue, and it also transfers the CO2 from the tissue back into your lung, and you exhale the CO2, the carbon dioxide. And so anyway, what happens is the scar tissue gets around those alveoles, and they can't work anymore. And anyway, when you research this, you learn that you have 3 to 5 years to live, and that's it. Anyway, that was a pretty hard pill to swallow. And, you know, I didn't want to believe that. But anyway, this stuff continues, the scar tissue continues to grow, and it continues to crowd out the alveoles, and you just can't live, period, without oxygen anymore.
Basically, it slowly but surely suffocates you.
You got it. And that's what it was doing. So anyway, at that point in time was when you said, hey, why don't you come out to South Lake and help me out? I told you what was going on with my health, and you didn't really seem to care too much. I mean, no, that's
I didn't understand all this.
Well,
this
no,
part. You're right.
I'm not saying you didn't care.
Yeah.
What I mean is, like, you didn't care for it to really get in the way of us coaching.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean, and I didn't really, but I warned you going, I may not be able to do, you know, what I used to be able to do. And because of this, and then, we started coaching in the winter.
Yeah, we did.
And as a couple weeks went on, all of a sudden I'm showing up. I can't make it out at practice without that backpack giving me oxygen. And then it even got worse from there. And this is over at South Lake High School still. Yeah. It got worse from there, and I was having to turn the oxygen up, you know, and now I'm having to rest every once in a while also. And what I mean every once in a while, I'm talking about like maybe every 5 minutes I got to just stop, catch my breath. And so this is progressing on me as the doctor said it would. Now, as all of this is going on, my wife, who's more of a, she's, how can I put this? She's more of an aggressive type person.
Very optimistic.
Well, that too, but I mean, she's the one who's, you know, she's grilling the doctor. Well, first of all, the first visit with our pulmonologist, he brought up a lung transplant. And I'd only seen or heard of one person who'd had a lung transplant. First of all, I mean, I knew a lung transplant could happen, but I thought, you know,
on your radar.
I thought this is a outside chance kind of thing. You know, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, or most times they don't. That's what I was thinking, because we'd had a friend who had a double lung transplant, and she was in the hospital for about 2 years, I think. She never came back out, and she passed away. And I thought, you know, this lung transplant thing might not be for me. I mean, I've had a good life. I start thinking I've had a good life. We'll just ride this whole pulmonary fibrosis out, and maybe it's just God's calling me home.
Wow.
So anyway, I start researching lung transplants. And I'm going, holy cow, everybody's having them. Not everybody, but a lot of people are having lung transplants. And wouldn't you know that just north of here is Shands Hospital at U of F Health at University of Florida, and they're the number one lung transplant team in the entire nation. They're rated number one.
They're an hour and 15 minutes away. Hour and a half away.
90 minutes away.
Wow.
And so we went back, and of course, my wife, being the aggressive one, starts telling the doctor, hey, so how do we get a referral to, U of F Shands to get on their lung transplant list? And the doctor said, well, I think you're too healthy to go and get on their lung transplant list right now. And then, of course, the next word's out of her mouth, because she's a little smarter than me too, by the way. And she knows the questions to ask, and she goes, well, maybe it's too soon for us to get on the lung transplant list, but how about if we went up there and got evaluated to see if we would qualify for the lung transplant list at some time? And he said, now you're not too early for that. Oh, okay. So now remember, this is all happening in like a February, let's say, okay? It would be February of 2021. And
that's not that long ago when you really stop and think about it.
I know. Crazy, isn't it?
Wow.
And so anyway, while all this is going on too, remember, we're still out coaching.
Yeah, we are.
And I'm going to the hospital.
Yeah, I do. I'll be here. I'll be here Monday. I'll be gone Tuesday, back Wednesday, Thursday. Might be here Friday.
Remember
not
all
sure.
that?
Was our schedules. Yeah.
Yeah, but then remember, you didn't get the job at South Lake.
Yep.
Then you retired.
Yep.
And then that's when we're having our breakfasts and stuff.
Every morning, Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, once a week in the morning, Cracker Barrel. And then one day we go to Cracker Barrel. and Donnie says, hey, how would you like to coach again? And I went, what did you do? You remember that?
I do remember that. We had about a year in between that because I went to UCs.
We did. I know.
So we got to enjoy that Cracker Barrel for 1 year.
And he goes, well, the head coach at Eastridge football, I don't know if he resigned or what happened, but he said, I applied for the position. And I said, do you have the job? And he goes, not yet, but I think I'm going to get the job. And I said, I've always said that I would coach for you or for Coach Willem anytime you needed me. Yeah. And I said, so I'm in. Twist my arm. I said, Coach, and he said, I don't care. And I went, okay, long as you understand, I'm in, So he had ended up getting the job. I ended up going out there with him. And God, who was with us when we first started anyway? Bobby?
Well, Bobby was there. I know Coach Rivers. I think back, when we walked into a kind of a good situation because we had Coach Daly was there. Coach Rob was already on staff.
Golly, what a godsend.
I absolutely agree with that. And man, and then we brought in a bunch of young guys, and then we were blessed this past year to bring on two seasoned guys.
Two older guys.
Yeah, two older guys. So that's what you're saying. Coach Lotro joined staff.
Coach Gary showed up too.
Yep, year one. Coach Gary showed up. Coach Lotro, alumni, came out.
Oh, that's right. Yes, yes.
It was kind of
good
interesting,
stuff,
man. We didn't know what we were really walking into.
But you saw me. I was trying to run around out there.
Man. Right, the first time I met you, man, you had the oxygen tank on your
Did
back.
I really?
Yeah, when I came out there, and I'm like, man, if he's this dedicated, then I can't complain one bit. I'm here. Let's go.
Yep.
Man, what you were doing was incredible, man. You were still going on the kids.
Something. Sometimes I thought I might be a little crazy, to be honest with you. But we had now while all this is going on, I told you I was going to miss a whole week and then some, a little bit more. because I had to go up there for that evaluation week to see if I was going to be put on the list. So see, while we're coaching, my wife is spearheading all this stuff and taking care of it.
Yep.
Well, I was trying, but remember that while you were too healthy for a transplant, he told you that they would laugh you out of the room if you didn't lose 50 pounds.
Well, that's true.
You had to have a BMI.
I used to be a little heavier, didn't I?
You had to have a BMI at a certain level, and you weren't even anywhere near that. So
You did too, though.
I'm not going to say anything. I mean, we were meeting at Cracker Barrel every week. I mean,
and it weren't just eggs and bacon.
Yeah, no, there was some pancakes, some syrup, some
lots
stuff
of
on
syrup and butter, and
So I just wanted to remind you that you had to set your mind on the first goal.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was my job to try and get you the appointments, but it was your job to get in the shape where they wouldn't laugh you out of the room.
Well, that was one of the things the doctor said to me. And our pulmonologist said that, the one here in Winter Garden who referred us up there. And he said, you have to lose this weight or they will not operate on you. They will not qualify you. And so at the time, the little man who's 5'6" weighed 238 pounds. And so they said, you have to get down to like about 187, somewhere in there.
I remember you telling me that.
And I thought, and you know what? And the doctor said, now, Dan, you can't control what's going on with your lungs. That's out of your control. Everything that's going on with you right now is out of your control, but you are the only one who's in control of your weight.
Wow.
So you have to lose the weight. So I started getting on the treadmill every day. And my wife hated it Kim hated it when I would close up the garage door on a nice hot summer day. And we have a metal roof on the garage and then a sheet of plywood. And I would close up the garage and it was like a melting oven in there. And I would turn that treadmill on.
It was heat stroke waiting to happen. And
I was
We'll
no,
move on back to Gainesville.
No, I'm
to the
sorry.
appointment.
I know my body, and I don't mean to, argue with anybody here. But when I was done, and somebody goes, "Well, how do you know when you're done?"
On the treadmill?
On the treadmill. And I said, I look down, and if the bottom of the T-shirt is wet, I'm done. If it's still,
I know. We see that coaching all the time. We can see the back of a man's shirt and it starts sweating. Practice is about over.
Yeah. The reverse thermometer, right?
It is.
And
it
when
just
it would
runs
hit the
down.
bottom, when the sweat would hit the bottom, I was done. But I don't know how many, it took me a while, but I knew I had a while too. And I didn't really diet much. I just kept working out. And I would get out and get active with y'all, and the kids and everything.
While you're wearing oxygen.
Why he's got the oxygen mask on.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to go by, first of all, this is your better half. For everybody that's going to be on it, the better half.
I think we all know that you're right.
Yeah, the better half, Miss Kim. So when you first heard of this diagnosis, were you familiar with this condition? I mean, did you know anything about it, or was it kind of like, wow, I've got to search this up myself and start doing homework? I mean, and then what was your thoughts after you found out the reality of what he was facing?
So those are the things that you never hear. You think you'll never hear the words lung transplant when it involves you. Yeah. But what made it even more poignant was we had an appointment together because it was post-COVID days.
Gotcha.
And so he looked at my x-ray and he goes, you're really doing well. And it's truly, this is how it happened. And then he looked at Danny's x-rays and says, but you, sir, have pulmonary fibrosis and you're going to need a lung transplant. So you could have hit us over the head with a 2 before, because
I mean, I'm thinking like
I'm thinking I'm the sicker one. I was in the hospital 9 days. He never went to the hospital.
Yes.
And so we're in this office, and the table was turned immediately. And when you Google it, and Dr. Google is not necessarily your friend.
No.
When you Google it and it starts throwing out life expectancies, I mean, what do? You just start praying, I think.
Wow.
And so, no, I knew nothing about it. I started taking pictures of all the brochures on the wall in the pulmonologist's office because, there's a lot of waiting happening.
Yeah.
And so it was just our mission to learn everything we could and who was best at it. Duke has a wonderful program, too. They do more transplants, but maybe the results aren't the same.
Wow.
But
Advent is very good also.
To anyone listening, I think what's important is it's your body, and you have to be your best advocate for it, and take a partner or a friend with you, and you're in it together. You have to be in it together, probably with God too, right?
Amen. I think back to what you were just saying a moment ago, and I'm just kind of like, whoa, how easily we forget. Like, I remember praying for you, being in the hospital.
Remember that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I had double pneumonia.
I remember Coach saying, because we always pray for one another's family when we're going through something. And I remember praying for you. We were in a hospital, and to hear that you went in for this routine
follow up,
like, post-COVID, like, to make sure everything's good. And you hear like, oh, everything's great. And you're like, okay, well, you're going to assume like you're the one that was in the hospital, double pneumonia. Like, hey,
exactly.
Well, Sam's, we're both going to get a good report. And we're going to walk out of here.
Yeah.
And then bam, you get hit with this, unknown condition
It's
you
a
never heard anything about.
Yeah.
A fatal disease.
It's a fatal.
Yeah.
That's as about as straightforward as you can
about
be.
it. There's only one ending.
Yeah. And the life expectancy, then you see 3 to 5 years. So when you see that, and I know you've been through a lot of challenges in your life, and you hear this news and you see the facts and you start this journey of just starting to absorb the information of what just hit you in the face, literally hit you in the face because of the way it happened. I mean, how did you compare that to other challenges that you went through your life? I mean, was it like, hey, I'm going to tackle it the same way? Or is it like, wow, like, did it take a different measure of faith, you think, compared to other challenges that y'all face? Is there anything that you could compare that to that you went through? Because, I mean, I know y'all been married how long?
37 years.
I mean, there's a lot of challenges that come over 37 years.
I think you just look at each other and say, all right, we'll tackle this one too. I mean, you can't give
just
up.
Don't miss a beat.
It's just the way it happens.
We used to say this to each other, no matter what, good stuff, bad stuff, we'd always look at each other and go, with us together, life has never been boring. And that sounds weird about when I'm talking about that, but it hasn't.
Wow.
But
what was your thoughts when you heard this, the first initial, and then thinking about your wife and your family? I mean, because I know the first thing that hits me when I hear this.
Well, now, when I got diagnosed, and I knew it, I didn't say anything to you for a long time.
No.
I didn't say anything to anybody for at least 3 months, probably. Yeah. I mean, and then I realized, I'm going to start being on oxygen pretty soon, and I'm not going to be able to hide this anymore, Yeah. And so my first thoughts were, you're in shock for a while, and you walk around and you're hiding this thing because you really don't want anybody to know. You don't want anybody to really worry about you or anything. And you're trying to internalize this, and you're kind of formulating a game plan in your own mind before you're going to share this with everybody else.
Well, because they're going to Google it, and they're going to see 3 to 5 years or 5 to 7 years or whatever it is. And it's
not everybody processes
everybody
the same
is
either.
The same,
yeah, you're right.
Exactly.
So,
wow.
Basically, I think that when we had decided that we're going to have a lung transplant, it was funny. I got to tell you this part of the story, though. I went into the doctor, and that was the time that we said, we're going to do a lung transplant, because he'd been just saying lung transplant on the prior 2 visits. Didn't really delve into it or anything. Yeah. So then on the 3rd visit, I said, so what about this lung transplant? What's the deal on that anyway? And he goes, oh, you have been listening to me. And I went, well, of course I'm listening to you. I said, I just wasn't sure I was going to go that route, And so I think once we decided that we're going to have a lung transplant, I'm going to have a lung transplant, we decided that, she and I had talked it over and the whole bit. And I think once we decided, we're head first now.
Wow. So someone on the other side of this.
We had a game plan.
You had a game plan.
Yeah.
We did.
So someone on the other side, so this is something that other people, every day somebody is getting this news just like you received that news. And, somebody on the other end of this video, which is the desire is to encourage them, if they or someone they love is going through this. When they get that news, I know nobody can probably describe in detail all the emotions that y'all went through or even developing that game plan. And I know it looks different for every person, but if you had something to encourage them, if they were just receiving this news, and maybe it's not even a lung transplant, maybe it's another condition that, like you said, but it's a fatal condition. It's something where their back is against a wall, and that there's very little light at the end of the tunnel, per se. What would you tell that person?
Don't
Where would
give
you
up.
start?
Don't ever give up.
Don't quit. Don't give up.
Seriously, I think the first thing I would tell these people is to get on your knees and pray.
Wow.
Not pray for your life, but pray for direction.
Wow.
That's what I would say, because I don't think we were looking for anything but direction in the beginning. I wasn't really, where do I go? What do I do? How am I going to do this? And you really have to start developing a game plan, but you can't do it without God. You just can't.
And without other people praying for you.
Well, and that's when I think I started out. She told me one day, Dan, you've got to tell your brothers.
Wow.
And I went, yeah, I know. And she goes, and because you've told a couple people, and pretty soon you're going to lose track of who you've told. She goes, so you better start with your brothers. But see, now we've kind of had a game plan put together, and I wasn't going to be able to hide it much longer anyway. So
where does that grit, that faith, where does that come from? Like from your upbringing and such, the experiences you guys been in the past. Like where does that come from? If you can pinpoint a very moment when you were younger.
A lot of my faith that I learned has. Let me go. Can I step back a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't think I really found God. And you might laugh at this, but I mean, I can only relate this through my story, and that is that I found God through science, of all things. But I think that I found my faith though through football.
Yeah.
Sounds crazy.
No, you think of all. It does in the beginning.
To the common person, I think it might.
Yeah,
sound
it
a little
does. I
crazy.
agree with you.
But they haven't experienced what we've experienced either, and I think that I think that the faith is number one. I realized that what was going on was bigger than me. It was a lot bigger than me. And because of that, I needed a support group. So once I realized that and we knew the game plan, I just started telling everybody.
Yeah.
So the best example I can give you is, first of all, we wanted to continue living our lives like nothing had happened. So we get in the car and we go to a University of Florida basketball game one evening. And by this time, we had the handicap parking tag and the oxygen
Oh, my
backpack and all this.
I know this story.
And we were coming out of the arena, going to our handicapped parking spot with the oxygen, and a couple walked up to us, and they said, "We don't know what you're going through, but can we just pray for you right here?"
Wow.
And that's when we realized that we will take any prayer from anyone of any faith, of any kind.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to see things improve for us. And it has helped us so much.
Didn't
When
he
you
say
let
he was
that
a-
guard down, it's not,
Didn't he say he was a minister?
I don't remember, to
I
be
think he said he was
honest.
a minister.
I just remember being stopped in a parking lot.
Yeah.
And since that time or subsequent to that, other people, different places, would say the same thing. And it just made you feel like you were wrapped in God's arms, I think is what somebody once said to me. And
What a beautiful analogy. So when you talk about that support system and you look, what were some of the, you have your own, and everybody's going to have to create their own game plan if they're on the other end of this. And they might not have football, but they have someone or people in their corner that they can reach out to. But when you look at your specific example of looking at that network of support, what were the key pieces of that support? I mean, I know it starts with God. I know it starts with Kim. What
my family.
What was that look like? I mean, you have your family.
Yeah.
But some people might not have that. But for you, you had a strong network of family.
By the time we're to this point now,
yeah,
we are in winter workworkouts, I think.
Yeah.
At East Ridge.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if you'd gotten there yet.
Getting close, because it was January. He's
Yeah.
within a few months.
But
of
all of a sudden, we're working out with 30 kids at the time, you think, somewhere?
30, 40 tops.
It wasn't
yeah.
that many as compared to what we have
Yeah.
now, you know. But I kind of had to, you can't go out and coach football. And, one of the things kids want out of their coaches is honesty.
Mm. That's something that's so overlooked nowadays, is it not? The game's
And I
changed
had
so
to be
much.
honest with them.
Yeah.
So I thought, I don't know how they're going to accept this, but I got to tell them,
Mm-hmm.
And so I told them, and I said, guys, you're going to see I'm going to have to take a break every once in a while, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to dress you up and down when you need it again, but it was funny because I told them, and all of a sudden I've got 30 or 40 kids that are part of my support group. Mm-hmm. That fast.
It's crazy you say that.
And they would take care of me out there.
I was about to say, yeah.
Family, man. And that's so powerful for a young man to see somebody fighting, an adult just fighting a real life battle. Like, that's so powerful. Like, I know we mentioned earlier off camera about, like, Cannon, you may have not said much to him, but the words that you did say to him, that lasts a lifetime, man. It's stuff they don't forget. They're not going to forget none of that.
Well, I mean, I can tell you, when I say take care of me out there, if I would start getting short of breath, like, Cole, coach, you okay? You all right? Or maybe you should take a rest or something. No, I'll be okay, guys. One day I'm standing way behind the defense. Well, I thought I was way behind. This is post-lung transplant. I'm standing way behind the defense, and here come two guys. I don't even see them. One of them's Tim. Tim runs right into me, and he literally grabbed me, took me to the ground, and laid me down.
Gently.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. And he goes, the initial hit wasn't as gentle as I would have liked to. And he's like talking me down. I got you, coach. I got you. All the way to the ground. And I'm like, okay, we're good. And I get back up and I go, appreciate you, Tim. But that's how they looked out for me.
Wow.
So I think I think the support comes from everywhere, right? Even as much as social media can be a danger, there's a support group for pre and post lung transplant patients
Oh,
at
yeah.
Chance. And there's a Zoom group. And on Wednesday, when we first were admitted into the testing program,
Yes.
we got on there and we heard
Oh,
people's
Lord.
we heard people's stories, and there was
Remember
there was a man that had joined the call that day from his hospital bed, and he had just had a transplant like a week before.
Wow.
Yeah, but remember, the first time I was on there, it was not a good experience.
Sometimes people are depressed, and that happens.
I think all of them were
But
that
what I'm
day.
trying to say is, surround yourself with every tool that you can have in your toolbox. I joined the Pulmonary Fibrosis Foundation, or wrote away, filled out the form to get all the information. I mean, just soak it up and take it all in. And that I think is a key to successful approach to anything.
So that's what I did, was I just spent my time. I mean, I go to Merritt Island every once in a while, and I couldn't show up over there wearing oxygen.
Yeah.
I mean, we're a pretty tight-knit group
The
still.
questions are going to immediately arise.
And some people are going to be shocked,
Yeah.
because that's how close we are. We're like family still.
Yeah.
And so I decided, well, I guess I'm going to have to break it to the guys I used to play football with in high school. I'm going to have to break it to them. And I did, and every one of them were like, "You got this, man."
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. And, because at first I was thinking, am I tough enough to do this at the age of 66? Because
that's important for somebody on the other end of this too, because there may be people that are in their 50s, 60s, and they're like, do I have it in me to go through this? And you're a living proof that, yes, you can.
Yeah. But, and I know that there are people that are, the more you talk to people, especially since my transplant, the more you realize everybody's kind of carrying something with them anyway.
Wow.
They're carrying some sort of people look at me, and unless I told them, they would never know I had a lung transplant.
No.
Ever.
The power of being vulnerable, man. Like, just imagine how many people that do go through stuff that just get in their shell.
Yeah,
I know.
I know.
Oh, man.
And they don't have to do that.
Do you think that you would be where you're at mentally, spiritually, physically, had you not opened up and shared that with everybody?
No, I would not be there.
Because I think that's something that somebody probably needs to hear on the other side, because some people might be afraid, like you said, to share that with other people.
They don't want to be pitied. A lot of people they don't want to tell you because they don't want to be pitied.
Yeah.
But they got to get over that and just accept the help.
Yeah.
And you can tell people you don't want to be pitied, but at the same time, accept their help, accept their prayers, and make them part of your team.
This is what I used to tell people. When we first met, and I told you my story, if you say, "Oh, Coach, I'm sorry," I'd look at you and go, "No, I don't have time for that."
Yeah. I remember you literally saying that.
I don't want any pity. I want your support.
Right.
No pity. We're not pitying me for anything. Because number one, no matter what, I used to tell people this, no matter what happens from here until after surgery or whatever, no matter what happens, because let me tell you something, maybe I don't survive the surgery. And you can say, "Oh, Dan, you're an optimist. You're always talking positive.
Oh, yeah.
You're an optimist, and you're not a realist." And let me tell you something. I know what reality is.
Because people see that strength, but that doesn't mean that all those moments were strong. I'm sure that you had your moments.
We'll get to that in a minute.
But this is wonderful for me because that's something I'm battling with. Like, got to open up that book just a little bit.
Yeah,
trust
and that's the thing I didn't. When people would tell me, "Oh, Dan, I'm so sorry," I'd go, "No. I don't have time for your pity. I need your support.
Right.
Wow.
I need your prayers. I need your help.
Wow.
I don't think you saw it, but I'm talking about a bad moment or two. She saw a lot of them
I didn't see a lot. You know, that is one question I do want to
because
ask her, because I know she got to see. We would always see the strong side that would walk out the door,
yeah,
that you can control to a certain extent. But you can only stay so strong for so long without having, I'm sure, some of those attacks mentally or physically. But I would want to hear what she would have to say on that. Like, what did that look like on the other end? Because, you know, this story, it comes off, you know, up to this point, like, man, just stay strong, stay positive. I don't want your pity. You're going to make it through it. Boom. Yeah, that's true. But it wasn't all uphill. I mean, or I should say downhill, right? Easy, right?
Well, no, nothing like that ever is. But I wouldn't say I ever saw a weak side. I saw a frustrated side.
There you go.
Right.
I like that.
And because your legs, after a long surgery like that, it's going to take a while to walk down the hall.
Yeah.
And the first day is 4 or 5 steps outside your room with 8 or 9 people around you holding on to every bag, every
All the equipment.
pump, every IV pole, and then a backup chair I followed him with a rolly chair, not a wheelchair, but like an office chair. Anyway, so he could sit down right wherever you had to sit down. Anyway, the bottom line is, it starts with 3 or 4 steps, and then 2 days later, maybe after some pain and some new medications and everything else, it's 3 feet, and then it's 1 lap around the hallway, and then in 3 weeks later, you're multiple laps around the hallway, with very little help. So yes, you you see a loved one in pain or in a situation where they can't really help themselves, and you realize how many people it takes to get you back on the right path. And I think the theme is grateful, right?
Yeah.
For every single person that came into our lives, especially while
you
we
were talking
in the
about that
hospital.
earlier. You kind of want to elaborate on, like, before we even started meeting, like, just how important all those people are in the big scheme of things.
Well, I think we were trying to figure out, like, if somebody were to ask me, how can I make a difference for somebody that I know who is going through this? Well, you can sign up to be an organ donor. Yeah. You can sign up to be a blood donor. Or if you're thinking about a different career, there's a zillion healthcare options there where you can be a physical therapist, a respiratory therapist, an x-ray technician. All of these people kept my husband alive and thriving.
Ooh, wow.
And everybody was a hero. You know that phrase, healthcare heroes, it might be overused to some people.
Cool.
Are they not? Are they not heroes?
Oh my God.
And
maybe overused, but I got to tell you something. There's nothing more true in the whole wide world.
we have a wonderful picture of Danny on the 3 or 4 days after surgery on the weekend. They said, Danny, we're going to get you up and we're going to take you outside. With the IV poles and everything that I just described.
Wow.
And 2 nurses got him into a wheelchair. Yeah, we had a feeding tube, everything. But we went outside on a Sunday afternoon.
Wow.
And I ran down to where we were staying and got our little dog and brought the dog to the park, or to this area where he was. And the tears started flowing because, by golly, here's another step forward.
Yeah.
And none of that would have happened without these 2 young women, nurses who were working on a Sunday, who said, we're going to get you out of this bed and downstairs to experience the sunshine. And
it was more than a job for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm
Kristen-
sorry I got off
Kristen
track
and
a little
Amy.
bit.
I still remember their names
So
of all
the
the
bottom
people I
line
met
is
and everything, you know.
there are ways you can help people like Danny.
But
and
I want to step back a little bit because talking about frustration, I would walk around the house sometimes and I'd have this oxygen cord following me.
way before the surgery when you were really
my
getting pretty
God.
bad. 'Cause
And there were times when I would just get so sick and tired of that because it would get tangled up and I would have to untangle it, or maybe something would happen and I don't know, just equipment failure or something. And I would just I wouldn't really scream, but I would announce to her, I hate my lungs.
By that time, we were tethered to a large machine, like the size of a small mini refrigerator.
Yeah.
And he had a 20-foot cord that went to the cannula in his nose because
And
the portable ones didn't go high enough anymore.
And I hate my life. I can't go anywhere like I used to anymore, you know, and blah, 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 blah. And those are my weak moments, you know, to me.
What if you had one? What was the hardest thing that you had to go through during this journey up to this point?
So our friend who lost his wife after she had a transplant told me, Kim, you are not going to be prepared for what you see when they bring your husband into the room after surgery. He's going, a lot of people pass out because they can't believe what you will see in the room. And, you know, God put him in my life, I guess, because he prepared me.
Yeah.
And so I was okay. But literally, you could not see my husband in the bed for the amount of equipment and bags hanging and monitors and all of that.
Wow.
And of course, at that time, he was on he still had a ventilator.
Yeah.
So when you see a loved one at their most vulnerable, I mean, that just rips your heart out.
Wow.
But within 24 hours, I was already being, as Danny says, aggressive. I was being proactive, advocating for an additional nursing team.
Oh.
Because I wanted him to
I
have
remember
a
that.
little bit more attention than I thought he was getting.
Hey, nurse number one wasn't working out.
Hey, so the bottom line is, you fight for your loved one.
Yeah. So,
But somewhere I got the strength to do that, right?
Wow. Exactly.
Yes.
yeah, that's so interesting. And what really has been like the secret sauce for you guys to be successful after all of these years? Like, what has it been? What would you say? It's that one thing.
You mean for
Between-
37 years of marriage?
Yeah.
What's the thing that's kept y'all strong together?
For me, it's commitment. I made a commitment a long time ago. I'm going to stick to it. I mean, I'm in love still.
Aw. Yeah, I mean, you can't imagine life without the other one. You
Yeah.
just can't.
True.
We have a daughter who's a miracle baby.
Yeah.
And
You know
we're
what?
we're two peas in a pod now.
We
We'll step
haven't-
away if we
not-
get upset with each other. We
Yeah.
just step away.
But you know the boundaries.
And not everything in our life has been peaches and cream, you know, and I'm not talking about, you know, animosities towards each other, just things we go through together. There's been some tragedy, you know, and a lot of happy moments also, a lot of, you know, and you know, that's what I say. That's why I always say, and she was the one who said it first, actually. You know, we've had good things happen and we've had bad things happen, but life is never boring with each other. It's just never boring.
And I love it how you guys mentioned earlier in the conversation, even though you've been going through it, you know, the trial and tribulation, what you both went through with a health scare, y'all still continue to live life like nothing was going on. You know what I mean? Between each other, traveling, going to games, and that's amazing.
And that's a big compliment going back to when you were coaching with us, you know. Years many times, hey, Gator, you want to jump on the golf cart? No, I'm good. I'm fine.
Right.
Got an answering machine.
And
I knew better than to second guess you on anything because Lord knows, you
After
give
the
it
transplant, I'm going to walk. You know why?
Yeah. Good for me. That's
No.
what you,
Remember what I used to say? I'd go, I'm going to walk. You know why?
because I can.
There you go.
Because I can.
Because I can.
But you know, I sit there.
We take walking for granted.
Yes, you know, but I look back at that whole journey on how you were going through that. Like you chose the toughest route as a coach every time you had an opportunity. You could be on the golf cart. You could have the keys to the golf cart, ride around everywhere you wanted to go. You could go and sit, pop a chair up and sit, but like, you're walking. You could take extra time off if you need to, but like as soon as you catch your breath, boom, I'm moving. You get your lung transplant, which is a whole nother story, because I remember that like, tell them boys, you would send me videos or comments like, hey, tell the boys to fight, because I'll be doggone if I'm up here fighting, I'm already, they tell me to do this many reps, and I did this. You like doubling the reps and stuff on physical therapy and stuff. And tell them, and don't tell them exactly, but I'm going to be back for that spring game.
Yeah.
And you made it back before spring game. You walk up on the hill.
Before spring practice.
Yes, before spring practice, you walk up on the hill and everybody's looking at you like you're a ghost. I mean, being all spiritual right now, I'm imagining what the guys in the boat thought when they saw Jesus walking on water, right? Like, who is this guy walking? This cannot be the guy who just, 2.5 months before this.
Had
just,
oxygen. Oh, remember I was hauling the oxygen?
Yeah, pulling a tank around with him and everything.
Oh yeah, man.
But you know what? The things that stood out to me in that process were a couple of things. One, I never heard you complain in front of the boys.
No.
Ever. Had every reason to complain. But you chose not to. Not saying that you didn't feel like it, but you chose not to.
What's that going to do for you? What is complaining going to do for you?
It's not, but this world has, been built around, and you go on social media, this is a great podcast to encourage people that complaining it ain't going to do nothing. I mean, there's something that can be learned in this moment right now. Like you said, what is it going to do? But we see this next generation, we put podcasts out complaining about all the things that aren't going right in the world instead of focusing on the things that are going right.
There's a difference between complaining and opening up. Back to you, Coach. It's sharing your feelings and seeking support instead of just blurting out what's wrong.
Yeah.
It's what's wrong and how can I fix it, or can you help me fix it, or can I just tell you about it because it's going to make me feel better?
And like, how do you even ask? 'Cause I know I'm speaking for myself and even others, like how going back to society, like there's just a wave of young men and women that just grew up to not ask for anything, to just get on their own, or just being strong in the faith and just sticking to it. What would you say? Like, how would you even ask for help? Like, I know this sounds like a kind of like a dumb question, but
I'm not sure I know the answer to that, but I think how we were talking about going back to the toolbox.
Yeah.
Look around you and see what's available to you, and maybe it's speaking to a stranger, or even a counselor, or a person in the church, or maybe a friend's parent. If you're a young person and you don't feel like you can talk to your own parents, maybe it's your minister. But just try to find a tool to put in your toolbox.
And I shared this with you on the phone the other day. I was at the barber and I was sitting outside and had time to talk. And I said, one of the things that I learned on a personal level through this journey, just on the backside, is seeing y'all's love for one another and how supportive. And, I know that a lot of times it's told, but it's untold at the same time. But like hearing you talk about how much she was doing and how she was there and what she was helping with and how she was in your corner and how I don't know how I'd make it without her. I mean, the things that she's doing. And that vulnerability as a man is a very, very difficult thing to deal with, because, you were born and raised in a generation where, you get things done as a man, and you take care of your family and you take care of your wife. And here you were at a very vulnerable point where you needed your wife to help you.
I couldn't even take care of myself.
Yeah. Man, talk about swallowing pride. Talk about relationship, what true love looks like. I mean, to me, it spoke to that.
And not only that, I'm going to look on the lighter side of what you're talking about. I know it's all serious, and this
Yeah,
is serious
yeah, right on.
in a lighter way. But she's type A personality, and I'm a type B personality too.
Mm-hmm.
And she would do so much or get ahead so much. And there are times in the hospital where I would just go, stop. And it wasn't all peaches and cream, because we were spending pretty much every minute of my awake hours anyway together, almost. And there were times when it got a little tough.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie about that.
Yeah.
But I'm also going to tell you that I probably wasn't a very nice person sometimes in the hospital bed.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I will tell you right now, no way I could have gone through this procedure and the recovery of this procedure without my wife, Kim. No way, on God's green
Well,
earth.
thank you.
Not going to happen.
I think about the people listening who maybe don't have a partner. And I
good.
just think about,
Yeah.
maybe it's going to be a brother. Maybe it's going to be a cousin. It doesn't have to be a husband or a wife.
That's good.
Danny's brother was the backup caregiver. So in a transplant program, you have to have that, because once they have no immune system,
Yeah.
if the primary caregiver gets sick, she or he can't be around the transplant patients.
So someone has to be there,
so
ready
there
to
has
step
to be
in
a
the gap.
backup. I mean, there's official forms that get filled out in the whole 9 yards.
Yep.
Wow.
So I would say recovery is the hardest part. It's easy to, not easy, but when you're sick, you're sick.
Yeah.
But it's hard to know how hard to push as a spouse. And I'm the type A. So if he took his medicine at 7 o'clock this morning and he has to have it 12 hours later, I start asking at 6 o'clock, has he thought about taking his medicine at 7 o'clock?
I love that.
And
Now you know
and
what
I
I'm
can,
talking about.
and I
See?
continue to do that
I
now.
know, laugh at it now.
But I have relinquished the entire medicine drawer over to Danny. He's in charge of all of that by himself. My rule is that I'm the one that calls the pharmacy to order the medicine. So we divided and conquered.
Divide and conquer.
So
I love it. From getting this news to, walking with the oxygen transition, sharing that news to, how intense it was during the actual operation and recovery, and how difficult the recovery being the most difficult part probably of that
Definitely.
journey. So here you are today with a new set of lungs. There's a couple of things that I'm sure that God has taught you through the process of what we've talked about that you think other people could probably benefit from. What are some of the things that you believe you've learned through this process as a man or a person that you think people on the other end should?
I'm going to back up to at some point in time when I was diagnosed with this, some people say it like this: God told me that everything was going to be okay. Well, I didn't hear any voices. I didn't hear anything, like, hey, Dan, none of that. I'm not crazy or anything.
Yeah.
I hear voices, but I knew. I just have to make. I knew everything was going to be okay. There was just a calm feeling over me about the whole thing all the time. That's why I could have such a positive attitude, because I was positive everything was going to be okay.
Where do you think that zeal came from, per se? I mean, where do you think that inner peace came from?
I can tell you now, I think it was the Holy Spirit just put his hands right on me and said, I got you.
No words, no speaking. It wasn't something that
Correct.
someone
And I
individually
knew it.
said.
And I knew he had me too.
Wow.
I can't explain it. You have to experience it. I was talking with a friend of mine, Jeff Duke. You know Jeff.
Yeah.
And we were on the phone, and this was maybe 4 months after my transplant. And I told him that story, and he's on the other end of the phone, screaming, going, I know, I get it, I know, you know. Yeah. And you know Jeff Duke also. Yeah, and I was like, I knew Jeff would understand. I knew he would. And I think that one of the things that I've learned is that you can let go of all of the control in your life and hand it over to God, and
a lot of people struggle with that.
I know they do. I told you on the phone, I said that this is always how it pans out with the stories I hear. You know, now I think back on it, God had me all the way. Now that I think back on it is the key word in that phrase.
Yeah.
And I told you on the phone, I knew God had me.
Yeah.
It's powerful. It really is. Spiritually, it's powerful. But I knew he had me when he had me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
Imagine that feeling, you know? Because and that's why I say that I think the best thing I could tell people is that I wish I had the words, really, to be honest with you, but you can trust God. And I used to tell people that no matter what happens, everything's going to be okay. And I meant that.
Yeah.
And that meant that maybe God was going to bring me home.
We talked about that a lot. We talked about having lived a full life.
It's still going to be okay.
And we really did.
Yeah.
And I was okay with it too. I mean, it was not a weepy thing.
No, but I mean, to me, these are happy tears.
But the world,
they're not sad tears at all.
The world and the enemy, you know, would whisper in someone's ear on the other side and say, no, you know, if you don't live here, then you lose. But that's so far from the truth. You had peace on regardless of what God's plan was.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Exactly.
You knew you won regardless. There was a piece of, I'm going to be victorious regardless.
I was in a win-win situation.
I used to say, with that many prayer warriors around us, how could we fail?
We couldn't. We couldn't.
It's true. I mean, and let's look at the reality of, you know, not everybody makes it through a lung transplant.
Well, they do not. They do not.
But it doesn't mean that every person that did not make it through the lung transplant was defeated.
True.
Exactly.
You can go into that.
Go with anything.
Yeah. You can be going through a difficult situation, but you have to find peace outside the outcome.
Thank you.
And that's what you found. But that all started with what you said. You've got to make peace with God. And you said the first thing, going back to the beginning of this podcast, is get on your knees.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pray to God. And then start building a plan with Him.
Correct. And I can tell you right now that if rejection can set in with me any day, it can start tomorrow. Yeah. And it could be something that can't be reversed. And I may die from it. But if the doctors ever say to me, hey, the rejection is bad enough to where we can't reverse it and there's nothing we can do, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get on my knees and thank God for the time He gave me here.
Amen.
I'm not going to be negative about it.
No, but we've been told that a second lung transplant is possible, and we never knew that. We thought, wow, you're one and done, right?
Wow.
So praise the Lord that that's even a possibility. We do know of one young woman in the support group who's had a second transplant.
Wow.
So,
Now, I want to go back to the young men, because I know a lot of the young men that you've coached over the years are going to see this podcast. There's going to be thousands of young men who are going to see this podcast, specifically because Coach Sam's has been instrumental in their life. I know they're going to see this. A lot of different stories, a lot of different experiences with each one of these groups. But if you had something to say to those young men, I mean, and I know this group here at Eastridge was very special in getting to see this journey, right, from beginning to end, really, almost.
Oh, yeah.
What would you say to those young men? What would you want them to get out of this testimony of what God has done in your life? You know, because this is bigger. This podcast is bigger than just a lung transplant, like you said.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I mean, they're going through things that right now that might not even remotely compare to a lung transplant, but where they're at in their walk with Christ and in their faith right now, they're dealing with difficult issues. Maybe they're struggling with addiction. Maybe they're struggling with, diabetes or, some other struggle. Because, I mean, there's so many, and we can look at physical, emotional.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying.
What would you want to say if they got anything from Coach Sam's?
All I can tell any of these guys, and I'm talking about even the guys that have graduated, we're family. You need help, you can always come back and talk to us about it. You can always rely on your family. I would also tell them that, I know most of these players have been saved. And they have got to trust and have their faith in God as well.
Wow.
I think that's the number one thing and they have to realize that what's going on in this world is so much bigger than them also. And they could be a part of it, though. It's huge, but they can be a part of it, And also, if you've got some tragedy going on in your life and it's something you're going to have to fight, never quit. Never quit.
I know that's something that you would always push in a game. I remember there's been games where we've been down by 2 touchdowns, and the biggest thing you were looking for was nets played, nets man. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
And you would look, and I remember, we've won a lot of games.
Yeah.
And we've lost some games.
Yeah.
But I remember that you said sometimes you learn more in those defeats than you do the successes about character,
Yeah, you do.
And
You do.
I'm looking at this right here. This is something that, the story's not over, like what y'all were just mentioning. So here I am now, I'm looking at you. You got your lungs. I mean, but there are things that come along. This journey's not over. Like, you have to be careful. Your life's changed a lot. There's certain things you got to be careful with. I'm sure there's medications and different things that you're going to need to be on. And
Correct.
And so, but at the same time, it goes back to what you and Kim said earlier. You said, like, we're not going to change living life the way that we live life. We're going to live life.
I just carry a lot of hand sanitizer, and I bug him about it all the time. Give me your hands.
Yep.
Here, do you need this? Do you need this?
And I know that, and I don't like it. I know I understand it, and I know it, but I don't have to like it either.
Yeah.
But I do it.
We have to honor the person who donated these lungs.
And
we have to honor the medical team who made this all possible.
Put a lot of work into it.
And whenever we get frustrated about something as simple as
we think about that,
having to wear a mask or hand sanitizing, we have to remember that.
All the high fives I'd give on the sideline and everything else. Afterwards, I'm washing my hands with that sanitizer, just in case.
The things we take for granted.
But and that's another thing too. Come to think of it, well, now, is the guys taking care of me. If anybody was ever sick at practice, they'd let me know and go stay away from me, Coach.
Absolutely.
Remember that?
Yep.
Yeah. So
wouldn't even be near you. Absolutely.
Yeah,
So never give up.
Yeah, I was getting back to that. Never give up, and don't ever quit. Never quit. You just don't know what's around the corner. So you just never quit. God doesn't want you to quit either. He doesn't want you to quit.
We talked the other day, Danny, in the car, I think it was in the car, about looking forward and not backward.
Yeah.
Because
too.
you can't
change
affect
it.
what's past.
Yeah.
You can only affect what's ahead.
Yeah.
So no matter what it is,
But you
can't dwell on the past. You might have learned from it, but don't dwell on it.
You've got to have such a positive attitude also. You have to have that I can attitude. It's got to be positive. You can't take any less than that.
I love the analogy you got, don't look back. I kind of spiritually see it like riding the car. There's a reason the front windshield is as big as it is.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why the rearview mirror is as small as it is.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
It's not that we forget the things that God's brought you through, but God's got so much in front of you that you can't see what's in front of you if you keep looking back. Correlating, I like that.
Also, one of the things that these kids could rely on is everything they've learned from us too.
Mm-hmm.
Everything they've learned on that field. You get knocked down, get back up.
Mm-hmm.
The little things like that.
When you think
The
you can't
discipline
go any
they
further.
learn. Use that discipline. Use it. Don't just forget about it, but use it. I saw my coach, one of my coaches, at a Merritt Island ball game not that long ago, and I sat with him for the whole game. And I explained to him how I felt like what he had done for me way back in high school, I felt like I was able to use that to help get me through this whole operation, recovery, and everything else. All the motivation he gave me back then, all of the discipline he taught me. And, and coaches saying, little sayings like this: if you want something bad enough, you can get it. You know what I mean?
Well,
how bad do you want something?
You came back from the double lung transplant, and one of the first things you asked me was, is anybody going to be on the sled? Why, you want it? I'm taking the sled. And you would go down there and, you love the sled because just when you think you can't go any further, one more rep.
Oh, yeah.
Put your hand in the dirt, give me one more. And, I saw that in your journey too.
But these kids will learn that they can do things that they think they can't. Don't forget all these things. I would tell them, just don't forget all of this. It will help you through life.
Wow.
The character that we've built in you guys is there for a reason. It's that would be my advice to them. Use what you've learned. Don't forget it. And wherever you go, take God with you.
I got two more things to end the podcast, and these are going to be good, and those are good nuggets. And I pray that the players that you've coached over the years will not quit, will remember all those things that's been poured into their lives by you and the coaches and the people's placed in their life, and that they will take that and run with it no matter what they're facing. Because a lot of them are going to face difficult situations, but you are one of many great examples of what perseverance looks like. And had you ever decided to quit, that probably would have been the end of that story. But here you are because you did not quit. This one's a good one. I went, and I shared this earlier, my son got his driver's license this past week, and all y'all are joking, like, let me know when he's on the road so we stay off the road. Like, we give each other a hard time on our coaches group chat, which I'm so grateful for our group chat for our coaches.
Yeah.
But, he was sitting there, and they asked him, sit still, you get your driver's license. I said, hey, do you want to be an organ donor? And he looked at me and said, what's that exactly mean, Dad? I said, well, Coach Sam's was saved because of an organ donor that donated their lungs. It wasn't necessarily under the best circumstances, but God had a plan that allowed him to receive these lungs to extend his life here on earth. And immediately my son's like, I want to do that. And he signed up to be an organ donor. And, I think about that. So it's important going back to what we said earlier, you had mentioned this, like you can sign up to be an organ donor. That's a way that you can make a difference in lives of so many. But on the other side, there are thousands and thousands of families who have lost loved ones whose organs are now carrying on in the lives of those around us. And many times you don't even know the lives that have been saved. And my thing, you know, one of the two last things, this being the second to the last, is what would you say to those families that lost a loved one, that give opportunity for people like yourself to live life a little bit longer, you know, because, you know, I remember you getting a call on the field. I saw you in the corner. I knew something was going on. I could just tell by your body language.
This was when I was listed.
That's when you were listed. That's right.
Yeah.
And I remember
that was a big deal.
That was a big deal.
Yeah.
And here's one happiness. But then I remember you calling me and saying, hey, they gave me the call too.
Yeah.
Because y'all were there. They gave y'all the call.
She was here in Claremont. I
home.
was in Gainesville.
But here's a moment like, praise God.
Yeah.
God, you're giving me the second chance. But then on the other end, there's a family that's lost a loved one. You don't know the story, and
we kind of know a little bit of the story, though.
Do you?
Not much of it.
Yeah.
This is what I do know, the story, and to me, it's very emotional. It was January 31st of this year. And if you remember back in January and February, early February, maybe the last couple days of January, first few days of February, there were massive amounts of fog across this country in the mornings and in the evenings or whatever. And a lot of flights had been canceled, and of the smaller planes especially. And so when they found the lungs that matched my match, you know, they called me, brought me in. I got to the hospital about 3 p.m. or something, I think, and they checked me in and they hook you up and they get you ready, because we're thinking surgery is going to be at about 11 o'clock that night, I think. And so it's kind of like hurry up and wait kind of thing. But then all of a sudden we get a call from what would you call that? The
organ transplant clearinghouse.
Whatever,
right?
And saying
UNOS is what it's called. But
and they said, we cannot get these. We're not going to be able to get these lungs to you tonight. It's going to have to be by tomorrow night. And so not only is the family, you're going to lose a loved one, but now we have to keep them alive for 24 more hours. What kind of pain and agony did they go through?
Wow.
For me.
Wow.
So I'm humble enough to say, I don't know if I deserve that.
Mm-hmm.
People being that good to me.
Mm.
I'm a good person, but I don't know if I'm that good. You know? I mean, that's crazy. You're sitting in bed thinking, oh my God, now they got to keep, I don't know if it was a man or a woman or a young man or what, I don't know. But you're sitting here going, oh my God, what's that family going through?
And you know,
I mean, that's gotta hurt.
As a pastor, I've been in a couple of rooms in this very specific situation. I've been in 2 situations where they were organ donors.
Yeah.
And they had to keep the individual, stabilized in order
so that
the organs will stay
they don't
functional.
go back.
Yeah. And one was very, very difficult. I remember the family stepping out and stepping into that room and holding the hands when it was that time. And it was about the same situation, about another day. They were holding on and holding their hand and until, they took them off the life support and stuff. I think it's so imperative that people on the other side hear that they are making a difference, that their loved one is making an impact that will, have a ripple effect that goes well beyond what they will ever see,
So we wrote that. Was that what you were going to say?
I was just going to say, we wrote a letter.
Yeah.
We don't know if it should have been delivered by now to the donor family.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember. It was a very nice letter, I will say that. And
the type A person helped with that.
Yeah. I mean, it was about a page. And,
Wow.
there's no words you can say to a family. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's not enough.
No.
And you just do the best you can on that. And I'm sure it got delivered, and we told them that if they were ever up for it, that we would like to meet them also, because I would.
Yeah.
But one of the points in the letter was that Danny is a coach, and that continuing his life will make it possible for him to continue to influence young men on the field to be, I think the words were, not only great teammates, but great adults and great fathers in the future. I think that's how he said it.
That's really what we're doing.
Absolutely, I agree.
We ain't just winning and losing ball games.
Right.
I mean, that's how we know this is all much bigger than us.
I was about to say, a lot of people ask me all the times, like, did y'all have a successful season? Like, I get that all the time. And I've had that question asked to me when we went 8-2, went to the playoffs, and, when you go 5-5, like a year rebuild. And, we don't measure success like most people do.
No, we don't. We never have.
I love that you put that in that letter, because when I look back, I look at the stories of the young men and what they're doing now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The ripple effect. I call it the ripple effect because it goes beyond what we'll ever see, till one day maybe when we're in heaven, they'll be revealed. But, here you are, and it leads to, and this leads right into the last thing, like, what are you going to do with this new chance that God has given you and this new opportunity? I know that you've already mentored, a couple hundred kids, over the last 2 years. But what does that look like?
This is one of them right here.
I agree, 100%.
Just if there's anybody that sees this podcast and maybe they're going through something similar to what have gone through, I think that hopefully this podcast will help in some way. If it helps just one person, then we did a good thing here today.
Amen.
We talk about that in football all the time, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
If we change one young man's life,
we
we've done a
said
good
that
job.
at the end of the season. I think, wasn't it you and I were going off the? They'd already, everybody was gone.
They left us.
You remember that?
Yeah.
And we were on the cart, just the two of us, and the whole field was empty.
Yeah.
And I just looked at you, and I don't know if you remember. I said, "I think we did a good thing here, Donnie."
Yeah,
remember that?
I do too. And I still feel that way.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Right, because every single one of those boys have a distinct memory of one of us, on the coaching staff, and that's a lifetime, and paying it forward, man.
And I think the thing that I learned, or saw in these boys, is these boys got to see and be a part of your journey over the last 2 years.
I couldn't have done it without them. I can tell you that right now. I could not have done this without them either.
Going back to sitting at Cracker Barrel,
Yeah.
I think that God opened up this opportunity for you and I to be on this team, not just to make an impact on their lives, but like you said, I think those boys made an impact on this journey. God knew that you were going to go through this journey. And going back, God put the pieces in place and put the right people around you to pray, to encourage, to strengthen to liven up your day, but at the same time, he puts you in a spot that fulfill the purpose he has over your life. And your purpose has always been to build others. And I've seen that ever since the moment I met you. You've always been about building others, whether that's giving them an opportunity to come out and work on the farm, to make a few dollars for kids who don't have much, to,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
you know,
I know what you're
hey,
talking
that
about.
kid's going to camp. He can't afford to go to camp. You know what? We're going to sponsor that young man that can't afford to go to camp.
Right.
To, Coach, I'm going to come out here, and a lot of people don't know. It's like you volunteer. Like you, like I'm not taking your stipend. You're going to take the stipend. I'm out here because I choose. This is my way of giving back.
Right.
And I think that's interesting to add to this story because, like, you know, you are worth your hire. You put your time in. You have a wealth of knowledge, but you chose to serve freely. And
I enjoy it.
yeah,
It's my passion.
yeah.
It's, you know, it's, I already told you why I don't let them pay me, right? If you don't pay me, you can't fire me.
He tells it all. He reminds me of this quite often.
You know, but no, seriously, the kids, you know, here's a funny thing that I talk about. Let's get real here for a second. What did I do, like, really about the last half of the season, I would say, because I was at so many doctor's appointments. I would miss a lot of practice, but what did I really do?
You spoke encouragement into the lives of those young men.
I would walk around practice.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't coach anything.
But you would build
I was in
them
their
up.
ear, though, wasn't I?
You were in their ear all the time. And, you know,
I was encouraging them.
but you would actually ask me, like, man, I ain't doing much. But I'm like, no. You're doing the single most important thing you can do on that field. You were speaking life into those young men. And you know what was even more amazing is that a lot of our young men, we realized, don't have a father figure in their life. We saw that at team camp. And even out of those, this year at team camp, we realized we had like 6-7 dudes that their dads are no longer here on earth.
I know it.
And that just kind of ripped my heart out, you know, at camp, you know, hearing that. But here, God brings this Gator, you know, you into the picture to speak truth and love into their life, you know.
But I'd walk around when a kid had just gotten yelled at by another coach. And then I would go.
You would go behind me? Is that what you're saying? I'm just
No, I would go behind. Well, I mean, it was
everybody
in
I
support, not just you. It was all the coaches.
Yeah.
But I'd go up to the kid and I'd go, let me talk to you for a minute.
Yeah.
Everything he said is 100% correct.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'd tell him first of all.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe you don't like the way he said it.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but I don't really care one way or the other if you like it or not, because that's going to happen in life.
Yeah.
You're going to have to learn to deal with that. I said, but did you hear what he said?
Mm.
You know, did you hear what he said? He's just trying to make you a better person. Yeah. He's just trying to make you a better football player. And, you know, and I, you know, I would go to J5 or I'd go to Traveris because I worked special teams with Coach Gary, you know, helped him out. Yeah. And I would go down there deep with them on their kickoff, and I'd go, now look, guys, I'm watching you, and you're just kind of doing this jogging thing until you see a hole. Don't do that anymore. I want you 100% full speed after step number 2.
Yeah.
I said, because that hole's going to open up, but it ain't going to stay that way for very long, and you got to hit it, you know. And Traveris obviously paid attention because he did real well this season, you know, but that kid has something that you can't coach. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's a little faster than we are.
Yeah, and so does J5, for instance. Yeah. He got a little something that I just can't coach. Yeah. I try and keep up with him. You know?
And even for like those little moments of you guys open up the home to them, then they help you guys move some stuff.
Yes.
They
right?
did,
They
and Traveris came out. He did some fishing and
caught something too.
He did. He caught a nice bass off the end of that made my heart feel good.
We were so happy.
It really did. Yeah.
He let us all know too.
You know, I met his mom during senior day, and it was just his mom that was there. And I did tell her she'd done a really good job with him. I let her know. I had to.
There's some great
He's such a
young man.
good kid.
Great young man.
Oh yeah, I could talk about all of them like that. You know, even the worst of them, I find something good in them. You know.
Well, that's a key, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, I will say this: if anybody on the field could find something positive in a kid, it would be Coach Sam's.
I used to say, you know, sometimes coaches just write kids off, and I go, no. I tell the kid, come here.
You
and
get away that easy.
I'd even do this with coaches. I'd go, this kid's going to contribute something somewhere to this team this year in a game. Don't give up. You know where I got that from? I wish I remember his last name. His name was Charles. And he was a little brother of another guy. And this was way back at Eastridge in the old days. And a lot of two of the coaches really didn't care. This JV, they didn't care for Charles at all. And because Charles was always dropping a pass or he was messing up. And I finally grabbed the two of them and I said, let me tell you guys something. Charles is going to make a contribution to this team in a game to help us win a game at some point in time this season. So we're not going to give up on him. Charles was our backup quarterback on JV, okay? And he played wideout as well. And only because somebody else had been hurt. We're in a game, and all of a sudden Charles is at wide receiver. And we had called a play, and he's supposed to do a quick slant. And we're down at like the 5-yard line. This is going to be a touchdown if he catches it. And the other coaches, I'm on the headphones, and they're going, oh, my God, we've got Charles as our primary receiver. And I went, he's going to be fine. Let it go. And somebody goes, does he even know what to do out there? And I said, of course he does. He's our backup quarterback. He knows all the plays, and he knows what everybody in the positions are going to do. Yeah. And sure enough, Charles hits that slant. Quarterback hits Charles, touchdown. And the other coaches are going, oh, my God, he's not going to let us forget that the rest of the season.
Coach said,
and I said,
did you let him know?
Charles wasn't going to let him forget, not me. And I said, and there's Charles' contribution right there. I told you guys. So we can't ever give up on any of these kids because they're capable. Oh, come on. Look what Aiden did this year on that kickoff.
Yeah, amazing.
Don't ever give up on these kids because you don't know when they're going to contribute.
You're right.
But they will.
Right.
They'll surprise you.
Absolutely.
I want to thank y'all. And I know this is just a little glimpse, little hope, testimony, open discussion, and encourage people who are going through these similar situations or maybe a loved one or someone to encourage.
I hope so.
You mentioned a foundation. If somebody is going through, pulmonary fibrosis. There's different, organizations that people can donate to.
Well, even the Organ Donation Clearing Center is a nonprofit as well.
So,
so they use the money to do campaigns to encourage more people to sign up for organ donors and to be an organ donor and that kind of thing.
yeah.
This is so trite, but I'm going to say it anyway. As you're talking all this football, I'm sure it's been said a million times, but you would never dream of having a game without a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
God is your quarterback.
Amen.
Wow.
I'm sure it's been said a million times.
I don't think that's trite, though. I think that's pretty powerful, to be honest with you.
It's the truth,
I think we kind of can relate to that because, we had 3 quarterbacks and they all transferred, went to different schools. 2 years ago when we took over this job, we had too many quarterbacks and we ended up with no quarterback. And then we had an inside linebacker come up and say, hey, Coach, I want to do whatever it takes to win. I'll step up.
And God will step up.
And it's so interesting that you say that. Now, did we have to adjust our game plan just a little bit? Yeah. But did he step up? Did he take a team that hadn't won a game in 2.5 years when we first came in and break even this year and have their first winning season? I mean, here, the underdog, you're never an underdog with God at quarterback. You're 100% right.
Yep. Correct.
And he was loyal, right?
Very loyal.
Loyal,
had opportunities to go places, could have transferred, could have done things himself.
And that's just mirrored to the faith standpoint, just being loyal, to God, loyal to your faith, just willing to stick it through, man. Wow, it's profound.
Well, we definitely appreciate y'all both coming in. I'm going to tell you this. So selfishly, I'm going to miss you dearly. But it doesn't mean goodbye, because you're going to have to deal with my annoying text messages and phone calls, and maybe
we ain't going that far away.
Yeah, we ain't going that far. You're within striking distance.
Yeah.
I can hear it now.
Yeah.
Eastridge's first game is such and such. Can we go over?
It's going to be hard. I will tell you this. I don't think that us coaches would be where we're at had we not been a part of your journey too. And, a lot of times it's always looking like, oh man, what they did for me. No, I think as we end this, you reciprocated and shared the love and loyalty and encouragement back to us that we needed through our difficult moments as well. You gave us inspiration to keep fighting and to not quit.
I have to remind you of this story of me meeting the harvesting surgeon that flew back with Danny's lungs. I met him in the hospital as they were, the transport team was taking the lungs into surgery. I'm telling them.
I know, this always makes me cry.
Anyway, I ran into the team as they were coming back with Danny's lungs. And that's a very unusual thing, obviously. And so I said to them, those with their cooler, I said, those are my husband's lungs, aren't they? No, I said, those are lungs, aren't they? And they said, sort of sheepishly, yes, because they're probably not supposed to say. And I said, those are my husband's lungs. And the surgeon, whose job was done, he had harvested them and the team was taking them to the OR and he was done. He said, do you need a hug? And he came over and he hugged me and he goes, and they're beautiful lungs. And I said, if you didn't believe in God before, you have to now, because what wife runs into the surgeon with her husband's lungs in the hospital lobby?
Right.
And he goes, oh, I believe in God and I'm praying for your husband right now.
Wow.
And I have never had a medical person
say
anything about God to me at all.
You should have met this guy, though.
Sounds like a guy I would want to be in the room with me.
What a guy.
Well, twice after that, he
came by and saw me.
He came by to visit, and one day, Danny was having a kind of a bad day because they wouldn't let him.
And he didn't know that.
No,
either.
he didn't. But God sent him. He couldn't swallow, so they wouldn't let him have food.
Mm-hmm.
And then they said that he could have food, but it had to be thickened apple juice, which is like drinking thawed out Jell-O, or it's gross. It is really gross. And Danny's like, I don't want anything. And the nurse is going, you're going to be dehydrated. You're going to this. Your sugar's going to be off. Blah blah blah. And in walks Dr. Rick, and Danny looks at him and he goes, oh, I said, this is Dr. Rick. This is the man who brought your lungs to you, or something. And all it took was him looking at Dr. Rick in the face and thinking, he brought lungs to me and I can't drink a thickened cup of apple juice. I will do this. I will honor the person who gave me these lungs. And we never had an issue with Danny after that.
Nope.
But who sent him that day, right?
I mean, he walked in.
Timing.
The timing was unbelievable.
I mean, he was being just out ornery. Ornery.
Yeah. And he walked in, and I was just like, he said something to me, and he didn't even know what he said to me, and it hit home. And then he said something else, and that one hit home even harder. And I just broke down crying. And I said, get that lady back in here. I need to apologize to her.
Oh, that's right. You did say that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I said, and I apologized, profusely. And I told her I was way out of line. And I said, now you bring me anything you want to bring me, and I'm going to eat it.
Wow.
or I'm
Or
going to
drink it or whatever.
Whatever I need to do.
Whatever I have to do, because you know what? We're a team, you know.
And that
So-
surgeon said to me, after he said he was praying for Danny during the surgery, he said, and I needed to run into you today because I was kind of wondering why I do this.
Wow.
I leave my family. I haven't been home in 3 days, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And he goes, but you reminded me of why I do this.
Is that not?
It's kind of like even when I said with coaching, like I couldn't imagine going through these last 2 years without Coach Sam's on the field. I couldn't. I mean, I'm just being honest with you. I couldn't. I definitely, I would have lost some piece that I have. Not all of it, but I mean, I would have lost some piece.
Yeah.
There's certain. Wow. But you offer that to the very man who saved your life, per se, and operated on you. I mean,
Yeah. Well, he didn't operate on me, but he harvested the lungs from the donor,
From the
and
donor.
brought them back.
And brought them.
That's huge.
that's intense.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, but he says to us,
On that. Not on that.
I sometimes wonder why I do this job. That's when I fell out the bed. You know, like, dude, you're an important man. What do you mean?
Well, back to the heroes, right?
I know, but
Full circle.
but he
moment.
didn't think of himself like that.
No, he thought of himself as a father who left his kids in the middle of the night to get
And
on
he
a
hadn't been
little
home for
tiny
3
airplane
days.
and fly God knows where.
But see, he doesn't ever involve himself with the patients after the surgery because he's on to the next one.
But him being able to see
Me,
Yes.
the end product of
And-
his work
yeah,
and what God has placed over his life as a calling encouraged him in a very, very important moment.
That's what he said. And
yeah.
to this
exactly.
day, he's on. I mean, I have his phone number. And every once in a while, I'll text him a picture of Danny doing something.
Like selflessly, we're going to miss you, just as important on
gonna
our
miss
end.
y'all.
I tell my wife this all the time. You're lucky to have, a few good friends in your corner that are dependable, that you can count on. And, we have some coaches that are like that. We're very blessed. You're one of those people that you're very dependable,
Thank
can
you.
count on you. I've enjoyed the journey, and, the hard part for me is looking, these next few years is like, man, it's going to be a lot different not having Gator around on the field every day. But, you are making the right decision because you're moving closer to your grandbaby
Yeah.
and your daughter and your son-in-law. And
Well,
I'm happy.
and I'm gonna take a year off,
hmm
and then hopefully
right back at it.
somebody might see fit to put me back on the football field over where we're moving to. We'll see.
I wouldn't cancel his Huddle account.
Oh, no. Well,
Just in case.
Coach Sam's still going to be around. We
You can say, hey,
it's a
dial up
goodbye.
this last game and see
not
what
at
you
all.
think.
Not at all.
Yeah, this is not goodbye. This is see you later.
Yeah, exactly.
And, I just want you to know that you're loved, you're appreciated. We all admire, this journey that God's brought y'all on. I always say that when you look at the testimony, the greater the testimony, the greater the calling over that person's life. And I know that for you to go through this journey, this late in life too, that here you are overcoming it. God's got so much more to do through you. And I just love the fact that it's him. And I know you're going to give him everything that he's given to you. So.
I don't know if it's my faith. I don't know if it's because I prepared for this. And you still remember the day we were on the cart, and I just looked at you, and out of the blue, I just went, "I'm ready." And you kind of went, "What?" And I went, I'm ready for this thing to happen, for this transplant to happen. I can do this. I'm ready."
Yeah,
but it was really, we can do this.
I was shocked because you were really struggling with the ideal. I know one thing, you didn't want to put your family through it. You didn't know what that looked like.
Right.
I know that you had discussed, the pros and the cons. You'd already weighed all that, with your wife. Y'all weighed that. and then you were struggling, not struggling, but you were working through finding that complete peace. You knew that God, you were going to win. You'd already made that very clear. I win no matter what.
But still, you gotta.
But I remember you saying, "I'm ready."
You got to think of the backside of this thing too, because when you wake up,
Yeah,
it's like you stepped out in front of the Greyhound bus and took it on, at 60 miles an hour.
I can't imagine.
But remember, you're not that far away from football that you don't spend a day or so maybe getting yourself psyched up for every game.
It's a process.
Getting yourself mentally ready, putting your mind in that right place of knowing what it takes to win this ball game. And that's what I had to do. And it took me a few months to get there, though.
But it wasn't even, and that wasn't a sly remark either. It wasn't like, "Oh, I'm ready." It was, you looked at me and said, "I'm ready." And you had such a confidence and a boldness in your eyes, and you had the oxygen mask on and everything, and you were just like, "No, I'm ready." I mean, you like Rocky, you ready to challenge Rocky in that moment. And I think I was excited at that moment because I knew that you meant what you said, and I would challenge you on the other side of this podcast that are watching that, find that peace, trust God, surrender it to God, come up with a game plan.
I think the last message I want to tell everybody is you don't ever have to do anything by yourself. You've got God, you've got your friends, you got a whole army of support out there waiting on you. You just got to go find it.
Amen. Me and you talked about something a lot long ago, and I preached a message on it by the way. You gave me a thing, and I actually preached on it. We were talking, and it's God is in the room. He's in the room.
Oh, yeah.
I actually preached that message.
Yeah.
And developed a message that He's in the room. He's with you always. Even if you feel alone, you're never alone. God's omnipresent in all places at all times.
Yep.
There was never a moment in this journey where you were left alone.
No.
And same thing for the people in our
I'd even
ends.
call you and tell you that from the hospital bed.
Yeah. I'm good. I love you. I love you. I love you.
We appreciate you.
I'm gonna miss y'all. I'm gonna miss y'all so much.
I love you
physically
too,
being
man.
around, but
we've been doing this a long time.
We've been doing this a long time. The one thing I will tell people is, enjoy this moment. Enjoy the moment that you're in. No matter how difficult it is on the other side of this podcast, enjoy the moment that you're breathing. Because if God woke you up and put breath in your lungs, He's given you purpose, and He's given you the will, and He's given you all the tools, as Ms. Kim said earlier, to fight the battle that's going on in your life, no matter how difficult it may seem. Reach out for those tools, utilize those tools, get a good support system. Don't quit. Don't never quit. Surround yourself with people who are going to encourage you. Don't look for pity. Look for people to encourage you and that are going to push you. It's good to have a type A person in your life. Amen. That's going to make sure that you're doing the things that you need to do.
She covers all my mistakes.
Yeah, right. And even going back to what Ms. Kim says, and maybe that person's not a spouse. Maybe it's a brother. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe it's someone that you're reaching out to that you feel like you can trust. It all starts with you making that choice to open up and start that process to build that support system. But not having a support system is not the answer. You've got to have that support system. To the healthcare workers, we would say, thank you. You're not overlooked. You are important. You do have a purpose that goes well beyond your feelings and your emotions and your sacrifice. Here is one of many living testimonies of the relentless work that you do behind the scenes. And not all the time do you get to see the end product, but every last one of you are a part of the process that brings healing. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. And to those who have lost loved ones or that have had loved ones that have been organ donors, you are making a difference as an organ donor, and your family has made an impact on one of many lives that is still making an impact and still living on, encouraging and changing lives, even well beyond, your children being in heaven or that loved one being in heaven. So just know that you're always going to be in our hearts and our prayers. It's always a tragic thing to lose a loved one, but at the same time, they're still living on. just like this one individual is still living on through you, and now has become a part of your story.
Yes.
And now is being used to impact many, many more lives still yet to come, and hundreds of lives, up to this moment. Every last one of the sacrifices that have been made on the other end, they're not in vain. They're not in vain. That there is a beautiful ending to those stories, and you don't always feel that way. I know that on my end, I lost 7 family members and friends in a matter of 6 months, and trying to find peace in that turmoil was a very difficult thing for me. But to see someone like yourself and the impact that you make selflessly for others, it doesn't fill the void, but it helps with the healing.
Yes, it does.
And so grateful for those families that will be tuning in. And last but not least, just know, regardless of why you're listening, that you're loved and we're praying for you. And this is another episode of God is in the Details. Super, super excited. Look out for some of the short reels. If you are struggling specifically with pulmonary fibrosis, and you have questions and you would love for, Coach Sam's or Miss Kim to reach out and, answer questions or give advice or whatever, feel free to drop a comment, and we'll make sure to get that comment to them, and whatever contact information you have, so they can reach out and encourage you, because just like they've had people in their corner, I know that they're advocates of putting, whatever they can to help others that are going through this journey. And we didn't get into that, but maybe at another time, like, you've already had that happen with another individual that's going down this journey. And now you've went out of your way to meet with this person and walk them through what to expect, to encourage them.
And we just spoke the other day, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
So
he called me just out of the blue again. We talk about once a month.
But you would not be able to encourage him the way that you encourage him had you not went through this journey.
I wouldn't know anything about it.
Yeah. Your journey has purpose. Amen.
Exactly.
Amen.
Yeah.
We love you guys. Logan, thank you so much.
Yes,
Ms.
sir.
Kim, thank you so
for
much.
what you do.
Absolutely.
Coach Sam's Gator, thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing your story.
Bulldog.
God bless you guys.